It just seems like every day there's some positive recruiting news associated with Alabama now.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Alabama internet legend Jimmy Stein. That's him. We're going with it. But this episode is brought to you by TurboTax. And I will talk about TurboTax in a bit. Thank you, everydayers, for being here every day. And thank you, newbies, for being here today. And thanks, everybody, for making this your first listen every single day. Also, special shout out to Miles, who I talked with today, who is a listener from NOLA, New Orleans, Louisiana. I appreciate you, my friend. Okay. So, Jimmy, it just seems like every day is some recruiting news, maybe because, it's spring break or whatever, but it feels like there are a lot of folks making official visit dates to Alabama. And I'll say this also. I was so happy, this last time because we've talked about the receivers and the defensive backs. And what I noticed in the comments from the last podcast was like, this is great. Where in God's name are the defensive linemen? And they got a point, because the only one we've really heard a lot about recently, and maybe this is where I'll start with you, is J.J. Finch out of Indiana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a couple from Alabama too that are interesting. Ruffin from Bessemer is a guy they're going to take a real serious look at. Emmanuel Ruffin. Bacon from Hoover is a guy they're going to take a serious look at. Elijah Golden is a heavily recruited defensive lineman that they're definitely in the mix for. I think next time. How about this? And since people ask about it so much, I think on the next full show we do, Luke, I think we spend an entire segment on the defensive lineman recruiting, because they actually are casting a wide net for that group. But it is difficult in this NIL era. I mean, this is the second most expensive position behind quarterback. In terms of, you want to sign a defensive lineman, you're going to have to pay. It's a difficult position to evaluate because kids are changing body types. For instance, J.J. Finch, who was 263 on his Alabama unofficial visit in the past couple of weeks, is listed on many of the sites as 220. And they're like, why are you recruiting him as a defensive lineman? That's a linebacker. No, he was 220 like a couple of years ago. He's 263 now. And as we know, a guy that weighs 263 in his junior year of high school is going to be an enormous dude by the time he gets through college. So they actually are recruiting several defensive linemen. Also this, as much as me and you brag about the DB recruiting, which right now is ridiculous, the corner recruiting, and we'll talk about Brandon Arrington again in a second, but the bandit and wolf positions are loaded with guys that like Alabama. And by the way, here's a guy that we haven't talked about much that we need to talk about as a defensive lineman, because really he is a defensive lineman, and that's Tank Jones from Mobile, who is a national top 100 player, who is a borderline 5-star, if not a 5-star. And I know that many places list him as a defensive end or an outside linebacker. He's a bandit at Alabama, and that's a defensive lineman. And for people to say, a bandit's not defensive line, well, our defensive line coach coaches the spot. So I would say it's a defensive line position, and Tank Jones would be an absolute home run. And the fact of the matter is, Alabama is a likely leader there over Auburn, but that is going to be a harrowing recruitment. That could go either way. Old-fashioned in-state Alabama-Auburn battle there.
It's interesting you say that, because, I'm like everybody else. I scoured different message boards, and I was looking at one message board that's an Auburn message board, and it was an article, it was 24/7, and it was guys that Auburn may be losing ground with. They had one where Auburn's trending up and one where Auburn is trending down. And I was kind of shocked they did the trending downward one, because, typically, it's nothing but positivity. But Tank Jones was on that list. And look, the writer did go out of his way to say, look, Auburn can certainly get back in this. It's not like they're, out of it completely, anything like that. I just found it rather interesting that even an Auburn site was sort of pessimistic. And then they also mentioned, by the way, in that same article, that Auburn is trending downward for Cedarian Morgan, who is the wide receiver from Benjamin Russell. Again, here we go with more wide receiver talk. But and that Alabama may be the team to beat there. Now another guy that I don't think will end up on the defensive line. I mean, he'd have to get a lot bigger, I would think, is Jaquez Wilkes. I know he is been the feature of an article here recently. I called him in the 1-8. Did I call that game? Yeah, I did call that game.
You did call the game. We talked about Wilkes a lot.
Yeah, we've talked about Wilkes a lot. You call so many of these games, you sort of forget who you called. I'm there for all of them, and I kind of forget who I called. But
I remember us saying specifically, I like Wilkes. I'm not going to go overboard until Alabama offers. If Alabama offers, I could be off the reservation excited about Wilkes, and Alabama did offer. And even prior to him coming to camp this summer, and I know they would love to see him in camp this summer, but I'm a Wilkes groupie.
Is this particular staff as big on you got to come to camp as the last staff?
Yes, but gotta might be a little different, and that's always a sliding scale, right? I mean, for instance, let's just name a kid. Brandon Arrington doesn't have to come to camp. He doesn't have to come to camp.
Well, he wouldn't have had to go to camp for anybody. I mean,
that's right.
Even Saban's bunch had some, you don't have to do anything except.
I want people to use this analogy because everybody loves movies, right? Does Tom Cruise have to audition for roles? No. Tom Cruise is a 5-star in every sense.
If he was playing somebody over 6 feet, he would.
That's funny. I got a good special effects Hollywood story to tell one day. Maybe today is the day. But no, Tom Cruise doesn't have to audition for roles. So Brandon Arrington doesn't have to come to camp. The majority of players that want spots at Alabama do have to come to camp. Again, it's a sliding scale based on where you're valued in the world. So that's not too different than the last staff. But I do know I've heard Courtney Morgan, who I have the highest respect for on the planet. I've heard Courtney Morgan say, hey, one of the beauties about being at Alabama, it's not like being at the other places. We can say, hey, you want to play here? You come to camp. He goes, if we're at other places and tell kids you have to come to camp to get an offer here, we're going to get flipped off. But at Alabama, you can say, you got to come to camp, and then they go, yes, sir, because of that script A. I've heard him say that. And I think this staff is taking full advantage of their place in the world, which is at Alabama, you can have that demand, though you wouldn't make it of Tom Cruise / Brandon Arrington.
Yeah. I want to go back to somebody like Wilkes, though. Do you feel like he would have to come to camp? Apparently he doesn't. So, and I would say this, this is not a shot at Wilkes in any form or fashion. I would be willing to bet that he would have had to come to camp under Saban. What would you say?
Yes. And Wilkes may have. I don't know that for 1,000,000% certainty that Wilkes doesn't have to come to camp. I don't think he does, but I don't know that. That's a good call. I don't know that he's Tom Cruise.
Well, that's where the line is.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Wilkes, to me, again, and we just sort of got off talking about this.
He's a 1A dude, so that's where all this comes from.
That's where the doubt comes in, and he's 1A, but he's dominant. The kid from Elba that signed with Auburn last year, the running back whose name escapes me for whatever reason. Yeah, Alvin Henderson. Same sort of thing.
That was a come to camp guy for sure. Even with all those numbers, that's a come to camp guy.
But I would say this. I think the fact that Wilkes can play defense, I mean, he probably will play defense on the next level, but he plays running back, and it is like watching Nelson Muntz out there when Homer Simpson coached him in Little League. I mean, he just runs people over, he runs by them, he runs through them, he can smoke a cigarette at the 50, nobody's going to do anything about it. I mean, he can do whatever he wants. But I guess and Alvin Henderson could too. Alvin Henderson set like multiple records. He's maybe 4th or 5th all-time national yardage leader. I mean, Derrick Henry's one because Derrick Henry was a freakazoid too. But I think because maybe he can play another position besides running back and he's not pigeonholed. Maybe that makes him a little more valuable and a little more desirable.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Hey, I met this special effects guy. He's the brother of a former Alabama assistant coach, and he is a special effects guy in Hollywood, and he's really successful in his field, and he had worked with Tom Cruise. And I was hanging out with him one afternoon, and I'm like, can you make me look tall? Is that something you can do? And he's like, oh, that's easy. I'm like, I am walking to LA to have this done. I'm walking there. I will get there faster than you will, even if you fly back. I got to see this. He's like, well, I can make you tall. I'm like, I am walking to LA for this.
I'm going as fast as my short little legs will take me. What are you going to be like Mickey from Seinfeld and use lifts?
I don't know how he's going to do it, but as soon as he said he's worked with Tom Cruise, I'm like, you met Tom? He's like, yeah. I'm like, here's guy's short. He's like, hey, short. I'm like, is he as short as me? And he's like, hey, he's around your height. And I'm like, so you can make me look tall? He's like, I can make you look tall. I'm like, I am freaking walking to LA.
Now, if everybody could just have a relationship with me through the movie screen versus seeing me in real life, we could really pull this off. I just realized too that because I made fun of Tom Cruise's height, and you say he's the same height, I inadvertently made fun of you, which people are going to kill me for, and I didn't mean to. But anyway, Monarch Money, new sponsor. We love a new sponsor. Ever check your bank account and wonder, hey, where'd all my money go? Yeah, I've done that. Every time I've ever checked my bank. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch, God, I can't say it. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one little old place. So you stop managing your money and start building wealth. That's the key. Look, when I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery because I got a bunch of kids and I don't want to go and blah, blah, blah. And now I budget smarter and I save more. Plus, it's all in one convenience. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first order. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Holy cow. They're giving you half off the first year, people. But know that code, Locked On MLB. Now, I got to tell you about another sponsor. As soon as I figure out who it is, I'm going to tell it. It's Factor. Oh man.
The meal people.
The meal people.
We just did money, and then money, meal. It's just perfect.
Well, this is great. I mean, I'm going to save you money with Monarch Money, and then you can save money with Factor because I'm about to give you a code at the end of this too. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, they're never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options available across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's Calorie Smart or Protein Plus or Keto Plus. Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, and grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day. I can't wait to try this Protein Plus meal. I really can't. I'm going to do that very shortly. Maybe after this podcast. The convenience is unbeatable. No prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. And if you're like me, that's the biggest part. No prep and no cleanup, I'm in. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 off. That's the number 50. Locked On College 50 off. To get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LOCKEDONCollege50 off at factormeals.com/LOCKEDONCollege50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. Sorry, I ran out of breath there. I thought I was going to make it. I didn't. I didn't make it. I'm sorry.
You need a meal.
We're just sitting around here improving y'all's lifestyles with
some water myself.
Saving you money, making a bunch of stuff.
We'll have you making money because we're going to tell you who's going to win the SEC tournament at the end of the show, and you can go to FanDuel and make some money or something.
Just stay tuned in to the third segment when we talk some hoops. But right now, let's talk a little Bamlers moving around in the NFL.
I'm fascinated by that stuff, by the way.
I wish I wasn't. I wish I wouldn't. I love it.
I watch a ton of NFL Network. Here I am now. I'm plugging NFL now. I watch a ton of NFL Network, and it's been awesome this week.
I kind of enjoy NFL free agency and draft talk more than I enjoy the games.
As crazy as that sounds, I don't disagree. How about this? I tweeted this out earlier, so everybody listening to the show may have seen the tweet. And all this fascination with Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson and where they're going to end up, and I'm fascinated too. And I think Aaron's going to go to Pittsburgh and Russell's going to go to the New York Giants. I think that's what's going to happen. You know who has a higher QBR than the two of them last year as a starting quarterback in the NFL? Jameis Winston, who's also a free agent.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You never hear him talked in that sense. You don't hear and I'm not either. I'm not saying you should be signing Jameis and not those guys. It's just funny to me that Jameis Winston somewhat outperformed those two last year. You don't really hear his name, but boy, Aaron and Russell Wilson are 25 hours a day on the NFL Network right now.
And breaking news, it's not breaking to y'all unless you hadn't been listening to the news, but we're cutting this on Wednesday night. We normally do it the morning of, but tonight we have to do it because I have to fly out tomorrow. The Jets just released CJ Mosley.
I did not know that until you said that.
I mean, because it just happened 16 minutes ago.
Oh, well.
As of this recording.
That's a shame because I'll ever, identify him as a Jet, and he's probably on the downside, right? I mean, he's on the downside of his career, and I'm sure the Jets are releasing him based. I heard a GM say this the other day. This is so smart, Luke. I heard a GM say this. He's like, when you're signing a free agent, you have to remember you're paying him for what you think he's going to be, not what he was.
Yeah.
You're not paying for what he was. You're paying him what you think he's going to be. And maybe that's why the Jets released CJ based on his contract, because so many fans, I think we tend to think of these guys as players. You have to remember, it's not just the player, it's the contract that goes with him. That's what they're cutting. They're not like, CJ, you suck. It's the contract that comes with you we don't find particularly palatable right now. It's the contract that leads them to being cut more often than the players being cut, if that makes sense.
This is sort of like having to break up with a girlfriend you really like because you're moving out of town for a job and she has a great job where she is and she can't leave. And she's like, we just got to break up. I mean, we don't want to break up. We care about each other. We've tackled a lot of the same people. I don't know why that came in.
We've tackled a lot.
We've been middle linebackers together for a long time. But
you're Mike, you're the Mike, I'm the Will. It's perfect.
Okay, so boy, I hate that.
Yeah, he ain't done though. He's
not done. And I just want some Bammer to be on the Jets when they eventually, one day in my lifetime, do something good again. I just want a Bammer on that team that's good.
I like the Aaron Glenn hire. I even like the Justin Fields signing. Did you know the Justin Fields? I saw this on NFL Network. He's the first quarterback in the history of the NFL to improve his completion percentage, touchdown throws, interception percentage, and QBR 4 years in a row. That's never been done. That's incredible.
He started out in the negatives on all of them. I mean,
yeah, maybe that's why it's improved. But no, he's the only one that's improved it 4 years in a row. QBR, touchdown, interception. So I like Justin Fields. I get why Chicago said, hey, we're going to go with Caleb Williams. But the whole time I felt like you guys are sort of giving up on Justin Fields a little early here.
I mean, the NFL gives up on quarterbacks so quickly. But, okay, so
how close were the Panthers probably to giving up on Bryce? I bet that was an inch away from happening.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. And now Bryce may be a thing next year. But Jonathan Allen goes to the Vikings.
Love it.
I like it because the Vikings could be a contender. I mean, they could be good.
Dallas
if
Turner,
McCaffrey is good. Yeah, I mean, they got Justin Jefferson still. I mean, they got some weapons, and their defense is salty. Then Najee Harris goes to the Chargers. Look, there may be some people out here that listen to this podcast that love West Coast NFL teams. I've always hated West Coast NFL teams. I just don't like them. I just don't enjoy them. Just about all of them. I pull for the
thing.
I know. I don't know why.
Seattle?
I think part of it is like, I don't like it when San Francisco's on Monday Night Football and it's still light outside. And I'm like, I just can't stand y'all. It should be dark right now. I don't know. That's sort of stupid,
I
right?
hold it against San Francisco that during my youth, I had to watch them play football on a baseball field.
100%. Same with the Falcons.
I hated that when I was
Same with
13. When I was 13, I hated nothing, but I
Same
hated
with the
that.
Raiders.
Yeah, the West Coast team, Raiders, 49ers, they're playing football on a baseball. For those that are like young and have no idea what we're talking about, they used to play football games in the same stadium where the baseball team
Fulton
played.
County Stadium.
Fulton County Falcons did the same thing back 100 years ago. So when they marked off 100 yards to play the football game, it would have to go through the infield dirt on all these stadiums. And gosh, even when I was a kid, I'm like, this looks stupid. I hate this. So I have somehow probably inexplicably held it against the Raiders and the 49ers, all these years. I'm like, I had to watch football on a baseball field thanks to you guys.
But also, I think it's just because of the time zone thing. Like it used to be, and again, this is probably just scarring from my youth when you didn't, if an Alabama player went to, say, the 49ers or somewhere like that back when I was really young, I didn't get to see them play. I mean, they just, because you got what you got. I mean, I was in the Atlanta market and the Miami market. So I got the Falcons and always got the Dolphins. And then the national game at 3 was always the Cowboys and the Giants or something.
Raiders, yeah.
Yeah, it always was. And, even though the 49ers were usually pretty good, that may be the only one we'd get to see. Like, I just didn't like having Alabama players go that far west. I felt like I was out of touch with them. It's different now because, on YouTube you can see them all. But, and maybe that's all kind of silly stuff. But is there any, I know Amari Cooper's still on the market.
He might be the number 1 receiver. Him and Stephon Diggs or as of this afternoon, we're still.
That people keep doubting Amari Cooper. He's just, all he does is just catch footballs.
It bothers me that he moves around so much. I wonder what that means. I mean, he's moved around.
Well, the Raiders gave up on him. Then the Cowboys gave up on him.
That's nuts.
And then he goes to the Browns.
Browns.
And it's like, I guess the Browns just, you don't know what they're going to. He's gone to a bunch of programs and franchises that really don't have their act together right now.
I guess.
Except for the Bills. But he's not I wouldn't call him like a great snowy weather player. So I don't know that.
This is on me. This is on Jimmy. It's not on these guys. I just have this gut feel all the time when players who are good, clearly good, have moved around a lot. I always wonder about, is this a locker room issue? I'm sure that's not the case.
I don't think it's the case
of the time. And I have a hard time believing that's the case with him. I'm just saying that I have this, that's my autopilot. When a player's moved around 4 or 5 times, I go, hey, he must not be good in the locker room for teams to be so willing to get rid of him.
Let's talk a little TurboTax. Look, this is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you're ever going to get any money back, and then waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who you can have do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deductible possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. So all you want is get all that money back. All they want to do is help you do it. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is how taxes are done. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, so SEC tournament talk. By the way, I went on Doug Amos's show like I do every Wednesday and brought up the whole idea about, conference tournaments. I enjoy them. They're drama filled. I mean, conference tournaments are the Real Housewives of crappy city. Real Housewives of New York. It's drama filled. Sometimes you can't not watch it. It can even be exciting.
I watch
but in the end, it's kind of stupid.
Yeah, I always feel like, why did I watch that? I mean, even when I'm kind of enjoying it, then I'm like, why did I watch that? But I do watch some of the time. I like when they throw the wine on their friend.
Yeah.
Like,
and Texas threw the wine on Vanderbilt today, and South Carolina. Watching again, for those, I'm not going to get into this again because I know people sort of they feel like I get on one topic and won't stop. But watching South Carolina, Arkansas today,
I watched it.
I did, and I watched a lot of it. And South Carolina almost came back and won, right? But let's tend like little segment I call tend like. Let's tend like South Carolina had come back and won. And then let's say they had miraculously won the next one and the next one, and they went. Is there any part of you at all, anywhere in your bones, that thinks South Carolina deserves a shot to play for the biggest prize? That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying these tournaments aren't fun. I'm just saying there's no part of me that think St. Francis, PA. I don't. If they hadn't told me is the PA part, I wouldn't know where it was.
Yeah, I would think that's a high school where we sign. It sounds like a place that we recruit up north.
They have a losing record, and they're going to the NCAA tournament. Everybody goes, what a great story. No, I look at it like, hey, what a bid stealer from somebody who deserved it.
Isn't there a St. Francis in Baltimore where we sign kids? Maybe that's where we're
that is high school. There's also
Deshaun Jones, I think, played there.
Yeah, I mean, I think Auburn signed. Isn't that Zion Ely from there? The number
Shane
one player
Lee.
next year?
Shane Lee. Yeah, the number one pass rusher. It's going to Maryland.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, and playing for a former Bama assistant, by the way.
And by the way, South Carolina, Arkansas. You know, Calipari came out and said this a little bit like you, that he doesn't care about the SEC tournament. He needed to win today. Can you imagine the outcry at Arkansas if he goes, I don't even care about this tournament, and they lose to the last place team in the SEC on opening? Calipari needed to win today, or he was going to hear about this for a while. That was going to be very disappointing.
What's funny,
Arkansas fans.
What's funny, he also had the comment, I guess that's why we won so much, is I never really cared about it. Kentucky hadn't won the SEC tournament since 2018.
No.
I guess he won 4 in a row before that, but he hadn't won it since 2018. And who
you got winning this thing this year? Who you got?
Jimmy, it is really, I want to say Alabama so badly. I really do.
I put them second. I'm not going to predict them to win it, but they would be my second choice.
They would be my second choice to win it, but I think the winner's Florida, so Alabama doesn't even make it to the title game.
That's exactly how I feel. I would put Florida. I think Florida's going to win it, and if I'm wrong, Alabama is. I would put Auburn third. I mean, in terms of who's most likely to win the SEC tournament, I think Florida, then Alabama, then Auburn, and I have a hard time imagining someone else, Luke, as this is being portrayed. I listen to Dari and Peter Burns, who I think is hosting SEC now. Right now, this is the most wide open. There's so much talent. True. To me, it's not. To me, it's Alabama, Auburn, or Florida. I can't imagine Tennessee or Texas A&M, who I think is really good. Those are good teams. I can only see. I would happily bet if FanDuel has this. I would take Florida, Auburn, and Alabama versus the field.
Oh, all day.
Comfortably in this. And I know that's really stacking the deck. That's probably why they even at FanDuel, they probably don't have that bet. But I don't think anyone other than those three can win it. And if I'm wrong, y'all all join in on the comments on Monday and pile up on me and say that was a terrible take because Missouri won or whatever. But I think
internet legend my butt.
Exactly. I think it'll be Florida or Alabama. Or Auburn. How shocked will you be if Alabama loses to Kentucky?
I won't be shocked. I'm glad you brought that up. I won't be shocked. I mean, here's one thing you remember. I think maybe Calipari's aloof attitude towards the conference tournament, maybe it rubbed off on Kentucky a little bit. I'll say this. I went to the tournament. Should I go last year or 2 years ago? No, I didn't go last year. I went 2 years ago. And
beer there? I hear they don't sell beer there.
Boy, I don't remember.
I think that's
because I went with my kids, and so I wasn't like really trying to get a beer. No, they sell beer. I think they sell beer.
I know they did not too long ago. I don't think they sell beer there, and that would be like I'm not going all the way to Nashville. Well, anyway.
Anywho, so Kentucky didn't take it over like they used to, and I'm wondering if the Kentucky fans now under Mark Pope are going to have a rejuvenated sense of this is our tournament. Because frankly, they have owned this tournament just like they've owned the league. Now, not recently, but maybe Kentucky fans have sort of a Bama, Saban, 2008 renaissance, and they're like, we're coming in and going to slap some people around. I don't know that they got the horses to do it, and I think the matchups are bad for them. I mean, I know they beat Florida in the first game, but Florida was winning in that game for a while, if I remember right, and then Florida beat them at Florida, and I also think they just don't have the horses to run with Florida. They do have the horses to run with us to an extent, but we did beat them there and beat them at our place. That big gigantor Williams they got is just he's a large human being. But again, it's not going to shock me if Kentucky wins. Right now, though, you know that old adage is hard to beat a good team 3 times.
Yeah.
Nah, not if you're better than they are. We see it all the time.
I'm with you there. I think hard to beat a team 3 times is overplayed because, like you said, I mean, the Chiefs are going to beat, the Titans 3 times. That's what's going to happen if the Kansas City Chiefs play the Tennessee Titans. But I will say this: I don't believe. Tim Watts told me this the other day, not on BOL, but me and Tim were talking, and I don't believe Alabama's ever beaten Kentucky 3 times in 1 year. I don't think that's ever happened ever. There's no way that's ever happened. So this isn't about Alabama's just a lot better than Kentucky. It's still Kentucky. They got dudes, and this is something that's never been done. So, yeah, I'm nervous about it, but I picked Alabama to lose more often than they actually lost.
In
so
87,
I'm going to be optimistic here.
In 87, when we had one of the best teams we've ever had with McKee and Connor and Gottfried and Farmer and Ansley and J.J. Jackson, that's the 6th. I mean, we had a good we had a hell of a 6. Kentucky beat us at home that year. We beat them in Rupp, but
those weren't great Kentucky teams. Those weren't vintage Kentucky teams. Those were just typical, or Kentucky's just always good. Period. So
fine.
I think Alabama's going to beat Kentucky, but I do not assume a win at all, and I won't be shocked if Kentucky wins. And let's just remember, Alabama lost this game 1 year ago. It was Florida, not Kentucky, but Alabama lost that game 1 year ago, still made the run to the Final Four. So it won't have an impact as far as what I see on what I think Alabama is going to do in the NCAA tournament. As a matter of fact, I'll probably be on here. Y'all will call it spin. It's not to me. I'll probably be on here Saturday if that happens, going, hey, we could use the rest.
Yeah, in fact, I think we should say that in advance, that I'm not going to sit here and just like have this celebration should we beat a very mediocre Kentucky team for a 3rd time in a row.
Mediocre for Kentucky.
I'm also not going to be hugely upset if a very mediocre Kentucky team beats us.
And again, I would say mediocre
by
for
the way,
Kentucky. This is a pretty good basketball
team. Are we
team.
sure it's Kentucky?
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I'm assuming Kentucky, and I shouldn't. Although they only have to win 1 time, to get. And again, I think Kentucky's a good team. I've been impressed by them all year, and I think Mark Pope has outperformed what I believed he would before the season started. I mean, I think Kentucky's better than what I assumed they would be. Again, maybe that's on me, but I've been impressed by Kentucky. But Alabama is damn good. I mean, Alabama's a really, really good basketball team.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but because I didn't think the game was going to mean that much. I had no idea that the Iron Bowl of basketball Saturday was going to be as hotly contested and as passionate and as unbelievable. Best game of the year. I had no idea it was going to do that. I swear, though, I think it was a good thing for both Alabama and Auburn, and I think it can be a motivation for both of them to really do damage in this tournament and the next tournament.
If Auburn wins the SEC tournament, and we're talking about this on our show Monday, I'll be going, Auburn won the SEC tournament because of that Alabama loss. That Alabama loss is why they won this SEC tournament. That could easily happen. Now, I tend to think, this is my thinking, is that Auburn was so good for so long. I've been saying all year what was kind of half a prediction and half a hope. I was saying, we're going to be saying when the year's over that Auburn owned January and February and Alabama owned March.
Yeah.
That's part prediction, part wish casting. But that's what I think is going to happen. But if Auburn wins the SEC tournament, I will credit the loss to Alabama as being what fired them up.
Yeah, because we're locked on Bama. We're not giving them any credit.
No, heck no. We're not allowed to contractually.
All right, Zach. I promise you, Zach Blackberry ain't giving us no credit.
Yeah, he's He's over there throwing wine on Alabama, just like on the Real Housewives. He's throwing his glass of wine on Alabama right now.
Next on the Real Husbands of Locked On Network. All right. All right. That's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back probably after. I don't know. I might go live after. Maybe we'll go live after the Florida. Not the Florida game, the Kentucky game Friday night. But we'll definitely be back Saturday. So until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.